Customs will confiscate your cash, even if it's under $10,000. You're at the airport with $9,500 in your bag. You know the rule. Stay under the $10,000 United States Customs reporting limit, and you're in the clear. You think you're safe. You've done nothing wrong. But what if that's the biggest mistake you can make? What if I told you that by deliberately carrying just under $10,000, you could be accused of breaking federal law? This is the hidden trap of traveling with cash. It's a legal minefield called structuring, and it's how countless innocent people have their money seized by Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, every day. Splitting a large sum with your spouse, so you each carry $9,000, can get your entire savings confiscated. This happens without any criminal charges, forcing you into a nightmare legal battle to get your own money back thanks to a terrifying government power called civil asset forfeiture. Understanding this trap is the only way to make sure your cash doesn't get taken. Section 1. Why the $10,000 rule won't protect you. Let's start with the one rule that's been hammered into every traveler's head, which comes from the Bank Secrecy Act. It sounds simple. If you're crossing the U.S. border with a combined total of $10,000 or more in cash or certain monetary instruments, you have to declare it. You do this by filling out a one-page document called the FinCEN Form 105. Now, let's be crystal clear on something. Carrying more than $10,000 is perfectly legal. The crime is failing to report it. The form isn't a tax form. It's just a report to help the government track large sums of money to spot illegal activities like money laundering. Because this rule is so famous, a dangerous myth has sprouted around it. The idea that as long as you stay under $10,000, you're totally safe. This myth isn't just wrong, it's the bait in the trap. Forfeiture attorneys see cases like this all the time. One woman was traveling to pay for cosmetic surgery and had exactly $10,000 in an envelope. Believing she was right at the limit, she didn't file a report. But when she was questioned by CBP, they found an extra $38 in her pocket for snacks. Her total was $10,038. Because she failed to declare it, CBP seized all of it. She eventually got most of it back after a legal battle. But that tiny mistake put her life savings on the line. This shows how strict the $10,000 rule is. But the real danger isn't for the person who makes a small mistake. It's for the person who tries to be too clever, the one who intentionally carries $9,500 specifically to avoid filing that form. In the government's eyes, your intent to dodge their paperwork is a massive red flag. And that's where we find the hidden trap. Section 2. Structuring, the hidden crime behind cash seizures. So, how can carrying less than $10,000 get you into trouble? The answer lies in there's a federal law, 31 U.S.C. Par 5324, that makes it a crime to structure financial transactions to evade reporting requirements. This law is aimed at people breaking up large cash deposits to stay under the $10,000 reporting threshold. It even has a nickname, smurfing. At the border, CBP uses a very similar logic to enforce reporting rules for travelers. If they suspect you are intentionally trying to evade the $10,000 reporting rule, they can treat multiple people or multiple trips as a single event. Here's the most common scenario. A husband and wife are traveling together with $18,000. Knowing the $10,000 rule, they think they're being smart by splitting it. $9,000 for him, $9,000 for her. Each of them is individually under the limit. But if a CBP agent questions them and they admit they split the money to avoid filing the form, they've just confessed to willfully evading the reporting requirement for the full $18,000. The government doesn't see two people with $9,000. It sees one unit trying to move $18,000 in secret. That intent to evade is what can make their actions illegal and the money seizable. Another example is breaking up travel. Imagine you need to move $27,000 from Canada to the US. Instead of one trip where you file the form, you take 3 separate trips carrying $9,000 each time. Again, the purpose of the multiple trips is to evade the reporting requirement for the full amount, and CBP can view this as a willful failure to report. These aren't just hypotheticals. While the most famous cases involve the IRS, they show the government's mindset. Take Randy Sowers, a Maryland dairy farmer. His insurance company told him to keep bank deposits under $10,000 to avoid extra paperwork. He did just that with his legally earned cash. The IRS accused him of structuring and using civil forfeiture seized his entire bank account. Similarly, Ken Ku Ron, a convenience store owner, had his life savings seized by the IRS for making cash withdrawals under $10,000, which he did for safety. In both cases, the government eventually returned the money after public outcry. It's important to note that since these cases, both the IRS and Congress have put policies in place to restrict seizures for structuring unless there's evidence of other crimes. But the principle remains. The government is deeply suspicious of anyone who looks like they're trying to hide. Section 3. How civil asset forfeiture lets them take your money. This brings us to the second, more terrifying part of the trap, the tool the government uses to take your money. It's called civil asset forfeiture. It works on a bizarre legal fiction. In a normal criminal case, a person is on trial. But in civil forfeiture, the lawsuit is filed directly against your property. Your money is on trial, not you. And since property doesn't have the same constitutional rights as a person, the government's job is much easier. In a criminal court, you're innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. In the strange world of civil forfeiture, it often feels like your property is presumed guilty. While the government legally has the burden to prove the property should be forfeited by a preponderance of the evidence in federal court, the practical burden flips to you to prove where every dollar came from. It's a system that can treat regular people worse than criminals. What makes this ripe for abuse is the financial incentive. In many states and at the federal level, law enforcement agencies get to keep a cut of the assets they seize, a practice critics call policing for profit. Some states have started to reform these laws, but the incentive often remains. The scale is staggering. One study by the Institute for Justice found that between 2005 and 2012, before the policy changes, the IRS seized over $242 million in more than 2,500 cases, just for alleged structuring. In at least a third of those, there were no allegations of any other crime. This isn't a system just for drug lords. It's a system that has ensnared thousands of small business owners and ordinary families. So let's walk through the nightmare. It starts with a simple question from a CBP officer. How much cash are you carrying? You say $9,500. The officer might ask why you have that much or why not more. Maybe you seem nervous. Maybe you're traveling with a friend who is also carrying $9,500. That's a red flag. They pull you into a secondary inspection room. The questions get tougher. Where'd the money come from? What's it for? They search your bags and find the cash. If they believe you intentionally avoided the reporting rule, they'll tell you they're seizing it. Just like that, your money is gone. They hand you a piece of paper, a custody receipt for seized property and evidence. This receipt is now your lifeline, the only official proof the government took your money. From here, a confusing and intimidating clock starts ticking. The government will likely use administrative forfeiture, a fast-track process that happens entirely within the agency. You'll get a formal seizure notice in the mail. If you don't respond correctly and within a very strict deadline, typically just 30 to 35 days, your money is automatically forfeited to the government. You don't even get a day in court. To fight back, you have to file a formal claim. This forces the government to take the case to federal court, where you can argue your side before a judge. But this is where the real pain begins. Legal fees can easily run into the tens of thousands of dollars. Many people find it costs more to hire a lawyer than the amount seized. Plus, the process is agonizingly slow, often taking a year or even longer. All while your life savings are in limbo. The government knows that many people simply can't afford to fight, forcing them to give up or settle for just a fraction of their money back. Section 5. How to travel with cash without getting it seized. Facing this system feels hopeless, but it's not. Knowledge is your best defense. Here are the clear steps you need to take if you're traveling with cash. First, be honest and declare. This is the big one. The single biggest mistake is trying to be clever. If you have $10,000 or more, just fill out the FinCEN Form 105. It's a simple report. It doesn't mean you'll be taxed or that your money will be seized. It just shows you're being transparent. Honesty kills the suspicion of evasion, which is the heart of the problem. Second, document everything. The government's weapon is suspicion, your shield is proof. Before you travel, gather documents showing the money's legitimate source and purpose. This means things like bank withdrawal slips, receipts from a property sale, or business invoices. Have these printed out or saved on your phone. If you can instantly show an agent you withdrew $12,000 from your bank yesterday to buy a car tomorrow, it's much harder for them to call the money suspicious. Third, the central lesson of this video: never structure. Do not split a large sum of cash to stay under the $10,000 limit. Don't give half your money to a travel buddy to hold. Don't plan multiple trips with just under the limit. These are the exact behaviors that scream intent to evade. It is far, far safer to carry $15,000 and declare it than to carry $9,900 and look like you're hiding something. Fourth, stay calm and consistent. If you are stopped and questioned, don't panic. Answer truthfully. If you're carrying a large declared sum with your documents ready, calmly state the source and purpose of the money. Nervousness or changing your story will only make an agent more suspicious. Finally, if the worst happens and your money is seized, act immediately. You cannot handle this alone. Politely ask for the agent's names and badge numbers. Make sure you get that official seizure receipt and photograph every page before you leave. Then, your very first call should be to a lawyer who specializes in civil asset forfeiture. The deadlines to challenge a seizure are incredibly short and unforgiving. Missing a deadline means you automatically lose your money. Outro: the system is designed for you to lose. The $10,000 rule isn't the finish line, it's the starting pistol. The real thing you need to worry about is whether the government you're trying to hide something. They've built a system where the very act of trying to stay out of their way can be seen as a criminal act, giving them the power to take your property through civil forfeiture. Remember the stories of the farmer and the store owner, whose only crime was handling their own legal cash in a way the government found suspicious. The belief that you're safe as long as you're carrying under 10 grand is a dangerous fantasy. The reality is that your intent matters more than the amount. Your best and only defense is to be transparent, be prepared, and never ever try to outsmart the system. Because in this game, the rules are designed for you to lose.